Wait for it, so you can't move.
Which one's John?
Is it?
Call the meeting to order with a prayer. Today being Veterans Day, a prayer for our veterans. God, please let every veteran of our nation's armed forces feel truly and appropriately honored by the attention and appreciation of their fellow citizens. Let no one feel forgotten or neglected. Let every man and woman, young or old, feel the deep and enduring gratitude of our nation and its inhabitants. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Patrick Hackett.
Here.
Chad Longbonds.
Here.
Joe McMonigal.
Here.
Christy Arlinghouse. Vince Albanese.
Here.
Bob Mueller.
Here.
Okay, approval of the minutes, October 14th, 2019, public hearing minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes from October 14th.
I'll second that.
Pat's made a motion, Vince second.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Chad Longbonds. Joe McMonigal.
Yes.
Chris Arlinghouse.
Abstain.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
I wasn't here.
Next is October 14th, 2019, council minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Chad's made a motion,
I'll second.
Vince second.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Chad Longbonds.
Yes.
Joe McMonigal.
Yes.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Abstain.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Next is October 28th, 2019, special meeting.
I'll make a
minutes.
motion to approve the October 28th, 2019 special meeting minutes.
Christie's made a motion, who's second?
Chad. I'll
Chad.
second
Chad second.
Patrick Hackett.
Yes.
Chad Longbonds.
that.
Joe McMonigal.
Yes.
Christy Arlinghouse.
Yes.
Vince Albanese.
Yes.
Bob Mueller.
Yes.
Next item, Irene, would you come forward, please?
Where do you want me, Ken?
Yeah, that's good.
Close enough, all right, guys.
That's good. This is a proclamation awarded by Lou Hartsville, Mayor of the City of Crescent Springs. All those now present shall hear, whereas Irene Stewart has been a prominent member of our community for decades, whereas she has owned and operated Irene's Little Bar for over 30 years, welcoming patrons with her warmth and humor. Whereas Irene has been a longtime supporter of law enforcement in the city and has hosted Christmas gatherings for the Dixie Police Authority and the Crescent Springs Police Department. Whereas Irene was the First Lady of Crescent Springs for 8 years when her husband George was the mayor. Whereas Irene and George were instrumental in the creation, planning, and construction of the Crescent Springs Community Park. Whereas Irene has contributed to the countless community events and has always worked tirelessly to make the city of Crescent Springs a better place to live for all its citizens. Now therefore I, Lou Hartfield, Mayor of the City of Crescent Springs, do hereby proclaim November 11th as Irene Stewart Day in Crescent Springs and encourage all citizens to recognize her and her work. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful journey with the city.
Take a breath. Read.
It was a long one.
Okay. Jeff, Fire Authority report.
I think your packets went out. I'll cover the run numbers real quickly. 111 ambulance calls for the month of October, 879 year to date. That's up 65 from last year. 48 fire calls, 532 year-to-date, and that's up 15 from last year. It's going to reinforce about smoke detectors. We had 2 structure fires this month. Smoke detectors in both fires saved people's lives. One happened at 4 in the morning. Smoke detectors went off and they woke up and the whole wall was on fire. So definitely that time of the year, they change your smoke detector battery. There are 4 people here today because of that. Only other thing I have is I know Crescent Springs contributed to the intersection at Buttermilk and Collins, and I think the chief will attest that we have not had an accident with any injuries at that intersection. I don't know if you had any accidents since the reconfiguration, so it's worked out really well.
Good, good.
On the smoke detectors, when you have a structure fire, do you see a lot of people's smoke detectors in their homes being monitored or not monitored?
It's about half and half.
Half and half?
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Brian, police report.
Just follow up what Jeff said, that intersection redesign has worked out magnificently, so not going to let anyone jinx it. So, real quick, we have 1,343 calls for service for the month. We are on pace for about 15,000 calls for the year. Just that's off the top of my head, best guess. Okay, total crimes 18, 29 collisions, 106 citations, 102 courtesies. Call response 13. Of the crimes, 18. We had 18 total. 3 were burglaries, 2 were larcenies, the rest were misdemeanors. Our solvability rate is at 96.8% right now. There's really no pattern to it as far as it's hitting all over the city. Buttermilk is our top accident roadway again, followed by Bromley, Crescent Springs this year. This month. Amsterdam actually dropped to 3rd for this month. Collisions 29, 3 were injury, 2 were commercial vehicles, 9 were in parking lots, 5 had property damage to them. Let's see, I'm sorry, I'm going to get the back page here. We had 35 hours of overtime. We closed many cases that we had both in Crescent Springs and Villa Hills. K-9 continues to do a wonderful job. We continue to work on the drug areas. We have eliminated a lot of your drug areas, or areas that we identified as drug areas. There's still more out there to do. But we are working in conjunction with the other task force to eliminate your areas.
Good.
So other than that, it's been a good month.
Whatever happened with the photo place up here?
We're still working on that case. It's not as everything as it seems. I can tell you that. That's all I really can say. It's a complicated case, but we are working on it with the federal government and state assistance on that too.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
15,000 calls per year tracking.
That's what it's tracking is 15,000.
Is that up, down?
What we figured.
About the same.
Yeah, exactly what we figured when I give you your thing. So it's about right on target.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is Public Works. We won't have a report tonight. Dewey was operated on today, back surgery. He'll be off 4 to 6 weeks.
What do you have to say?
Next is the city administrator's report. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor Harpel and council members. Just walk you through a few items. Back to Amsterdam Road Sidewalk Project. As you look at that, the first 4 bullet points I've listed a few times now. It's obviously the actual updated information. But the last bullet point talks about Nick from Kenton County, that he has sent correspondence to the state regarding this information, and he anticipates that there should be a decent, fairly quickly response time back from them, seeing that all the cities are on board with this project itself. So once he hears something, he will let me know, and I will communicate that to you all. Firehouse committee process update. I left something out on that first bullet point, but the next meeting is at the Ville Hills Council Chambers at 6:30. That's November 18th. The committee is coming together, and Megan Sampis from the area development group is doing a great job of leading. We're still in that phase 1 area of everything. We are still in the process of gathering information to determine whether it makes sense to obviously remodel or build new. The biggest thing we're trying to get over right now, step-wise, and moving forward, is to have companies actually come in, assess, and bid on whether we need to rehabilitate the current structure or actually build a new structure. And that last bullet point, this is kind of a common theme that has started to come from the meetings itself, and I think it's a good one, that the committee is starting to understand that in order to convince councils from both cities and defend the significant cost to taxpayers, each phase needs to comply with the scope and take into consideration all possibilities within every phase that we go through with this process, especially the needs and wants of the fire department. We definitely do have to look at that. The last thing I wanted to comment, it's off the report, is the TIF that's titled Local Development Area Number 1. We have full support from Kenton County and PDS. PDS has already did one reading, which Patrick and I and George attended with Jim Parsons. There is one more reading coming from PDS that will show support for this area development agreement, which is good. And then there's still 2 readings to be done by Kenton County. The first will be tomorrow night, which Patrick and I are going to be in attendance. And the second one will be later this month, which Patrick and I and Jim Parsons will be present for it. So this TIF agreement is heading in the right direction, and we got the full support from Kenton County and PDS, which is great. And lastly, I just wanted to say thanks to the Events and Recreation Group for the Halloween walk. Apparently we had a great walk, however it was moved inside.
It was more like a set.
But April did say that there was a good turnout, so
Yeah.
thank you, ladies, and thank you to Lori. We do appreciate that, and it doesn't go unnoticed, it really doesn't, so thank you.
I have a question about the firehouse update. On phase 1, do you have a timeline for the completion of that?
There is no timeline. We're still trying to work through, and it's a good question. We're trying to work through getting everybody on the same page. And I think we're getting there, but it's knocking down some walls here and there. And I will research that, ma'am, and I will try to get an answer for you at that next meeting. I think the biggest thing is we want to hone in on, potential companies that have a great reputation in this area, and have them come in, look at it, and then obviously give a bid and go from there. There is a report that has come back from a certain company, and I don't have the company's name offhand. However, yes, it was a very low bid, which we really don't feel like it meets the scope of what we really need, because we want to be prepared every step of the way, every decision we make, that we can answer to both councils, both mayors, and our citizens, because there could be questions and we need to make sure we do it right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next item is mayor's report. I don't have anything tonight. Old business, did you have anything?
Nope.
Kevin, are you here for a particular purpose?
Nope, just wanted to come out and support you guys.
Okay.
There's a reading tonight.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing for old business, we'll move on to new business. Any new business?
We got some correspondence from PDS about a Board of Adjustment meeting to answer or respond to a request for a variance of some sort up on over.
There was a Board of Adjustment hearing last Tuesday, the 5th. It is up on Ritchie.
Yeah.
There's a vacant lot next door to the auto repair, auto paint shop. And actually, and forgive me for not remembering names, the person who built the office building next to that wants to build another office building. And he has requested a variance of a setback from 15 to 10 feet. And then also he wants to put an outbuilding, I'll call it a shed, basically at the back of the lot, which would abut the I-75 right away. He did not appear at that hearing. And one of the employees of the car shop did appear and raised objections, which I think as the night went on, as the meeting went on, I think what he was really addressing might be issues between the two that would not necessarily be at odds with the requested variance. So Gary Smith, who is the chair of the Board of Adjustment, made a suggestion that the hearing be continued. So it's reset for November 26th. And this is really to afford those two parties a chance to meet and see if they can reconcile their differences. And I would expect a vote, a short meeting on the 26th and a vote one way or the other to adopt or not to
Because
adopt.
PDS approved it.
Well,
They have a
PDS
favorable
handed,
recommendation.
well, their report is favorable from their staff, and but because Gary continued it, they had to repost a notice. So that's what
Okay.
you received.
All right. Thank you.
That's the 2-hour meeting in a nutshell. And if I misstated anything, April, correct?
That's good.
Good, thanks.
Okay. Anything under new business? Okay. November 20th is the finance meeting. 25th, the caucus meet, our next caucus meeting. 28th and 29th, the city offices will be closed. On December the 4th is the Events and Recreation Committee meeting. And December 7th is Christmas in the Park. And on 11 December is Economic Development meeting. With that said,
I make a motion.
Vince made a motion to
I
adjourn.
second it.
What?
I'll second that motion.
Oh.
Then we
Vince,
stick it for a second.
Christie made a motion.
Vince made the motion, Christie said.
Yeah, that's what I was writing down.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Roll call.
Patrick Hackett,
Blinded my eyes.
Yes.
Chad Longbonds,
Yes.
Jim McMonigal,
Yes.
Christie Arlinghouse,
Yeah,
Vince
I
Albanese.
normally say that.
To go by.
Yes.
Irene,
Tom Mueller.
can I get a picture with you and the council and the mayor? Would you mind with your proclamation?
What do you want us to do?
Where do you think's a good setting? In the front?